Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm one of your hosts, CJ Ferry. I'm here with our co-host, Chipper Bob Camara.
Hello out there. Glad to be back and glad to be with you again, CJ, to talk about Fall River.
It's always great to be here. And our first two shows have had some great reception from you, the viewers, and some of our Facebook followers. And some of it good, some of it not so good, some of it hateful. But as we've said before, we're not in this to make friends. We're just here to tell you the truth and hopefully influence you on what is happening in Fall River so you can make informed decisions and talk to your elected officials and tell them what they should do regarding your money and your time and what they should do for Fall River.
That's correct. And the other thing that we're here to do is to point out areas that we think we need work on. And that's always been a problem in Fall River. There seems to be the attitude that if we admit that there's something wrong, that we are negative or we are only looking at the bad parts. But I submit that how can you fix a problem if you don't acknowledge the problem, if you don't deal with the problem? If you're an alcoholic, you have to admit that you can't drink anymore before you can cure yourself. Fall River has a tendency to try to cover everything up with loam and plant grass on it.
Well, and will that be our first issue today, or?
No, actually, CJ, I thought we'd talk about something that was in the Herald News about the Watson School and the school department in general. It gets back to what we talked about in an earlier program about asking why. And we're going to ask why today and see what you think of this. I'm quoting directly from the Herald News. This is an article about the Watson School being a level 4 school. These are some of the comments. First of all, the mayor has announced that there'll be a task force formed. Well, really? Another task force? Because kids don't show up at school? Is that what we really need? It seems that all we do is study and create task forces, which ironically always come down with a finding after the election. What's your take on this?
You know, the funny thing is we scream about we don't have money. We don't have money, we don't have time, we don't have people, and we always seem to have enough money to create another task force, another blue ribbon commission, another plan. My question is this. They have the Matthew Cuss Middle School, which is, quote unquote, the nation's poster child, the nation's book for how to raise a level 4 school to a level 1 school, how to, create a better school from a poorly functioning school system. And we can't do it in our other schools. We can't attempt to do it. And it's taken them how many years to find out that our schools, children aren't attending? I mean, I've got a problem with this. Where was the mayor? Where was Mayor Brown when all these attendance reports were coming in? It took them a year to figure out that last year or the year before, 47% of Durfee High School students had attendance problems.
Well, I have a problem with that too. The superintendent of schools gets a really big salary. She got a $20,000 a year pay raise. We have principals, assistant principals, deans of students. We have so many tiers of administration, and it took them till just before an election, when there's an underperforming school being declared, to say that, oh, wait a minute, we don't have children attending school. We need a task force. I think we need more accountability for the people who are in the school department that are being paid to administer it.
And the funny thing is that we don't even have truant officers. We have one truant officer at Durfee High School. One at Durfee High for all those students. So you never hear enforcement. And I know that the mayor went on ABC 6 and he said that we need to look at what the problem is. And if necessary, we'll get the judiciary involved and we'll take these parents to court. When you've got kindergarten and first grade and second grade students not showing up for school, that's not the kids that aren't showing up for school. That's the fact that the parents aren't bringing them to school, or there's no transportation for them to get to school. So there's a multitude of problems in this family situation that need to be addressed. And just threatening on the air, which was done with DSS, or which is now DCF, and The judiciary didn't work. If you remember correctly, several years ago, Ed Lambert threatened parents of delinquent children who weren't going to school with the judiciary, and that fell through the cracks. That was another program that didn't work. It just didn't happen. Chin's orders are only effective as the enforcement of them.
Well, the reality is that, this is a problem that is sociological in many cases, and we have a lot of issues, but realistically, is it the city's problem? I mean, I know the mayor's a lawyer, and he wants to go to court on lazy cakes and everything else, but the fact is that there's a law that children have to attend schools. We have truant officers. If there's an issue with the family, just like in a hospital, you turn it over to the appropriate authority. We have to ask why again. We hear so many things. Here's another quote. Both Flanagan and Mayo Brown said the task force, is a part of an effort to get out the word. Better attendance means better performance in schools. Really? Did we need the mayor and the superintendent of schools to figure out that if you don't attend school, you're not going to perform as well? I mean, they're insulting our intelligence. We have to ask why. This is what we're getting. This is the kind of same old we get, rather than dealing with the issues of Fall River.
I was just going to say, don't you get the impression that you're being spoken down to? Okay, you're an idiot. You don't know this. That's the impression I get. And you have to truly admit that when you're spoken down to in that fashion, you just want to reach out and say, excuse me, I'm an educated person. I have some knowledge and some common sense. Where's your common sense to say that you're going to form a task force to educate me that if a student goes to school, they're going to perform better in school? No, really? I have a college education. I have college degrees. I think I know that. Not everyone does, but I think common sense does prevail in most cases.
You're right, and that's not really, it's really not the issue. What they're saying is just it's ridiculous. Let's face it. Here's another one that there's. We have technology in the schools, but this school is an antiquated school. It doesn't have a gym and a play area. Well, schools that'll learn. As a matter of fact, one of the newest cutting-edge technologies in school is online learning with the Khan system.
Khan Academy.
And
yes.
There's no gym in the Khan Academy. The fact is that this is all rhetoric, pre-election, to justify that we have another underperforming school, which may or not be actually planned. Because we all know that an underperforming school gets more money. And it seems as though we really haven't dealt with the educational issues in Fall River. We move the underperforming students around from school to school, and then we get money for that school. And then we make all these grandiose gestures and come out with all this kind of thing. And another study group, another task force, and there's another study group right in this article that said the formation of the task force will coincide with the formation of another group, the Watson Elementary School Redesign Team. Well, we could have 1 million groups, but the fact is the school budget has grown and grown and grown, and we have no bang for our buck, and the taxpayers should be sick and tired and asking why. After spending all this money, do we really need them to tell us that if kids don't go to school, they're not going to be as smart?
Well, and the other thing is, I kind of read in between the lines on that. Very clearly, the mayor and Meg Mayo Brown have said that this is an antiquated school, okay? They don't have a gym. They don't have a play area. Look at some of these new schools that we have. They don't have great play areas. They really don't. They do have gyms. Most of the time, the gyms also double as the lunchroom because they move the rooms around by moving walls. But it sounds to me like they're planning to close the Watson. That there may be a plan in place to close the Watson and then move these students to some of the bigger schools, which would be the Green and probably either the Fonseca or the Spencer Borden. And again, moving the students further away from home. And the problem is that, our children don't have the same school system that we as children had, where we could walk to school, 3 or 4 houses, 2 or 3 blocks, and we knew every kid in school, and we could, we'd all collect together and walk to school together, walk home together. I mean, I remember the days of having a patrol to walk home, and you go to school and you walk home in a patrol, and you had fun doing it, and you had friends. A lot of these kids, they have friends in the classroom, but they don't interact with these kids afterwards.
Yeah, that's always a factor, the socialization. But the other issue I have with this whole thing is I would like to see a study group formed to determine if we really have improved these other schools, or have we just moved the underperforming kids out of there to let the statistics show that the school has improved. We really have never looked closely at our educational system. We know it continues to fail, and the fact is we continue to pour money into it.
And the thing is that study group has to be an outside group. It cannot be in any way, shape, or form tied to the school department or to the city, because we know that if it's tied to the school department or the city, they're just going to give us what the administration and what the school department wants us to hear, not what the truth is. MCAS is now being phased out for a new test because it takes too long to process, and the teachers were complaining about teaching to the test, and now they're saying that the MCAS wasn't the appropriate way to determine whether or not these students were being taught. Well, it was a testing tool. I mean, it was a tool to find out, are they learning? And obviously they weren't learning. So what do we do? Again, you have to hold your elected officials accountable. And again, money is being dumped into this school system on a regular and recurring basis with no bang for our buck. We're losing more and more programs. We're losing more and more actual teaching time, it seems, that our children are learning something, but our days are growing longer. The school day is actually longer now than it's been in a long time.
True. And, that is the thing. The fact of the matter is that we continue to spend money and get no results. And that's why we're here, to tell you to ask why. We have people running for school committee. We have the mayor running. We have city council people running. And the fact is, it seems in business, if we fail the way this school system has failed over the last 20 years, we would be out of business. But rather than out of business, we continue to bail the school system out like the federal government bailed the banking industry out. And it's never going to perform until we hold their feet to the fire and ask why.
Accountability is the number1 concern, and that's one of the things that we promote all the time, accountability in government.
Yes, and I know that I think somebody called CJ a communist, but for some of the things we said, or a Marxist. But I'll remind them that CJ actually ran as a Republican at one time. He's an independent like I am, but I don't think we don't have any political affiliation here. What we have is an affiliation with the truth. We're trying to give you some of what's happening in the city and telling you to ask why. I'm not making this up. You can go to the Herald News article. It's called "The City Aiming to Curb Absenteeism at Watson School and Schools District-Wide." It was written by Michael Gagney. So you can read this article. I'm quoting verbatim from the article, and it's actually insulting to see how they just try to gloss things over and believe that they're talking to an uneducated audience. Well, it's up to the voters to educate themselves. It's up to the taxpayers to get the best bang for their buck. And it's up to you to ask why and only put people in who are going to do the job.
I agree. And I think it's important that people realize that unless you ask questions of your elected officials, unless you ask questions of the department heads, and yes, you can ask questions of the city department heads. Don't think you can't. Many of them are willing to answer your questions. You're not going to know what's going on, and you need to ask that. People call and they say, oh, well, I can only call my congressman or my senator when I need something. No, you can call them and ask them questions to get information. And it's your right, and you need to do that because you need to know the truth and what's going on out there. And hopefully we can move forward by opening our eyes and opening the eyes of our friends and neighbors, because that's what's most important in Fall River right now. Because for Fall River to pull itself up from the bootstraps and move forward, we need to know the truth, and we need to hold everyone, not only our elected officials, but our next door neighbors and our businesses accountable to everything that they do as well. We got to pull together as a community, and we all can do this work together, and that's very important.
You're right, CJ. We have to do more than ask for the truth. We have to demand it. We can't allow them to continue to do this only before an election. That'll segue me. I'll segue into another article from the Herald News, which talks about our mayor walking around with Martha Coakley. And they talked about how her concern for the public, and she's down here to find out what the people really want, and her 3.5-year association with our mayor. If you look at it chronologically, that's when she ran for office the last time. Seems that the only time these people are concerned about what we think is at election time. The only time they know where Fall River is at election time. And it seems that our chief executive officer is more concerned with walking around with politicians than addressing the issues in the city of Fall River. And we can't have that. That's what we are here for. That's what we pay taxes. We pay him to do a job. And political rhetoric every 3.5 years is not going to change Fall River. Only we can change Fall River by making these people totally accountable and not listening to rhetoric. If he asks you what you think, say, where were you 2 years ago?
Exactly. It's tough because, this was a whole period of time when our mayor was gone for 4 or 5 days, and nobody knew where he was. He was persona non grata everywhere. He couldn't be found. And he was needed at several events that were important to, particular individuals and groups. And for him to not be there without a reason and without an explanation is concerning to me as a citizen and to me as a voter. I want to know, where were you for 4 or 5 days? And then as soon as you're seen again, you're, prancing around the state with Martha Coakley showing her off. It's questionable.
Well, it's more than questionable. It's very distressing. The mayor is supposed to be our chief executive officer. He wasn't available for the We Love the Children. He wasn't available for the spaghetti ramp opening, but he's there with a pair of giant scissors to open up a Chinese restaurant or a nail salon. He also wasn't there, which is really distressing, for the dedication of the auditorium at the new Morton Middle School to a Fall River soldier who died in Afghanistan. And to me, that is more than distressing. It's deplorable and it's disgusting. If there's one event that the mayor of Fall River should attend, it is to honor a Fall River resident who gave his life, made the supreme sacrifice for his country. But he was nowhere to be found. But the next day, he found his way to Almac's Diner with Martha Coakley. Does he really have a commitment to this city? When you miss things that have something that are really important to the people of this city, like We Love the Children, like the spaghetti ramps that are supposed to be the panacea for the waterfront, and the dedication of an auditorium to a Fall River soldier, to me, that's showing that you have no commitment. You only have a commitment to politics because you showed up for Martha Coakley, but you didn't show up for Scott A. Andrews. And that's wrong.
And Chipper, I know you're a veteran, so I know this hits home for you especially. And, the thing is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, there were 2 congressmen and a brigadier general, present for this event. Now, if 2 congressmen can take time out of their day, and these are congressmen, they have a lot more on their plate than the mayor does, and a brigadier general can show up to respect this fallen soldier and to show this fallen soldier's family the respect due him and his family, you would think that other people could do it. Thankfully, Linda Pereira did show up, but she was put on the spot to do that. And I think that was absolutely wrong. And I know that when they dedicated the bridge overpass for 79, a little bit before that, the mayor was a half an hour or 45 minutes late for that. And again, that's not the only thing. And I'm not trying to pick on the mayor here, but I'm just saying this goes to show that when it's an election year, for some reason, all of our needs on the political side seem to shift. It's what makes me look good. Here I am, look at me, la la la. And then the rumor mill starts up, of course, because Martha Coakley, who is the Attorney General currently, is running for governor. And she made a comment that a political candidate here in Fall River made, that she wasn't going to let this get by her. She was going to roll up her sleeves and get down and meet the people of Fall River so she could be close to the voters. And then Sam Sutter comes out and says he's going to make the decision shortly on running for Attorney General. And then the rumor mill cranks up and says that the mayor is already forming his committee to run for district attorney. He hasn't even won the mayoral election yet, and he's already considering a run for district attorney. Where is our commitment here? I mean, we don't know who to vote for. We've got all the cards on the table, and we're going, who's next? Where we go? It's like playing fish.
Well, it's unfortunately, it's that time of the year. It's an election cycle, and politicians become political, even more political than they are under normal circumstances. But here again, it's up to us, and that's why we're here on Straight Talk. It's up to us, and it's up to the people of Fall River to demand more than political rhetoric. It's up to you to demand performance. It's up to you to demand that these people put us as a priority, not put politics as a priority. The people have to come before politics. We can't have people who represent this city having the president of the city council apologizing for the mayor for not being at a dedication to a fallen soldier. There's no excuse for that. The only excuse, as far as I'm concerned, is that he's either dead or he's in the hospital. There's no excuse for what he did, and I'd like to hear it if he's got one, but I don't think we ever will. But they will bring out all the political guns, and they will talk about how this is good for the city, that they're going to be friends maybe with the next governor. But realistically, our tax dollars and the way we spend them are the most important thing to us, and we have to make sure that we don't elect anyone who doesn't have a total commitment to the city of Fall River first.
And Chip, to shift a little bit here, we're taping today at the start of the beginning of the federal government shutdown. And surprisingly enough, I received a phone call today from the EPA. And as some of you know out there, we not only do a show to complain, as many of you think, we're just doing this complain and do political pundency stuff or start drama wars. We don't do that. We actually do some investigative journalism at the same time. And believe it or not, we are journalists in a lot of ways. And we've gotten photos, and we have anonymous sources of stuff. And some of the people in city administration and city departments don't exactly like us. Well, I got a phone call on this day of government shutdown from the EPA in regards to a story we're doing. And I've been speaking to the DEP. And I've spoken about this in front of the city council. And surprisingly enough, I get a phone call from the EPA, which is the federal arm of the Environmental Protection Agency, which is the federal arm of the state DEP, which is the Department of Environmental Protection. And they asked me, should they classify this as an immediate danger? And I said, well, at this point, I really don't know what to tell you. So I have to talk to a professional person, and I'm doing that, on whether or not they should classify that. Meanwhile, I get a phone call today, which is going to be very interesting because you can back this up, that a truck is driving down to the water department to haul off materials from the dumping ground we were talking about. And, we will get some photos of that and hopefully be able to present them here on the show. But if they're carrying away anything that's contaminated without proper handling, it's putting everyone in danger. And again, this is where accountability comes in. Do we have accountability? Is this accountable?
Yeah, it's more than that. It's actually, it's actually a violation of the law. If this was a private entity, if it was your home and you had even the hint of a hazardous materials issue, you would be required to call in Clean Harbors or one of the hazmat crews, and they would have to do test borings, especially in that closer proximity to our water supply. And the thing that really disturbs me is that the city is making every attempt to minimize and cover this up. The fact is, it's always in public safety better to err on the side of caution. There may not be any toxicity, but the fact is, we have pictures, we have people who have complained about illegal dumping and dumping of things that may produce PCBs and other contaminants. And rather than the city making full disclosure to its residents and doing the test borings, they're just trying to minimize it and say, oh, don't worry about it, it's no big deal. And in 5 years when they're out of office and a contamination field is discovered, they'll be long gone, and we will be suffering the consequences. The fact is, this is an extremely potentially dangerous thing. It may not be dangerous, but again, the city is not handling this in a way that is upfront. There is no transparency in the way this government handles anything, and the fact is, it's not the way it should be handled. We should be erring on the side of caution.
People will say that we're, alarmists and we're trying to scare people, and we're not doing that. Many property owners in the city this past week received, by the time you watch this, it'll be a couple of weeks, you received a notice that there's some contaminants in the water already produced from chlorine and things that are already in the pipes, and they're not dangerous at the levels that they're in. But how long, that notice was generated in September, and we're already in October, and we're just getting it now. So it shows you how long it takes for the city to get notices out to us. So again, call your department heads, call your city administration, your mayor, your city council, your school committee. Ask them, talk to them, and find out. We want to know. And with that, we've come to the end of our show. We always have a good show, but we want you to call us. We want you to email us. We can be emailed at spindlecitystraighttalk@gmail.com, or give us a call at 774-955-0102. And we want to hear from you. We want your comments. We want your suggestions, good or bad. We're here to listen to you. If you've got a tip, we want to hear that tip. You don't have to leave your name on our voicemail. We'll listen to it, and we'll take it up, and we'll investigate it. We're here for you. My name is CJ Ferry.
My name is Bob Camara.
And this is Spindle City Straight Talk. Thanks for watching it, and you have a great day.